So this is a quick video just to introduce you to the main concepts of academic misconduct and how to avoid it in the School of Education. So I'm Sarah Holmes.
And I'm Konstanze Spohrer.
So you may well be referred to one of us if some kind of thing arises, but we want to avoid that. So this is a quick thing just to explain that. So you'll see on the screen now some of the forms of academic misconduct that the university has identified. You can, of course, look on the university's website, potentially through your Moodle of your course, to look more into the university rules around this. And so you'll see there's various different things. Particular ones we see more prevalence of are misconduct during sort of an exam or an in-class test, plagiarism and collusion. And so we want to support students in making sure that this doesn't happen. If there are suspicions of this kind of thing, your case would probably be referred to one of us. Collusion is when we see students working too much together. So we encourage students to support one another and help a little bit, but the pieces of work that are being submitted must be different. And so even if you do your preparation work together, your actual thing you're submitting to get credits for your degree, they need to be separate. They need to be your own work. So that's something to bear in mind to avoid collusion. Konstanze, do you want to talk a bit more about plagiarism?
Yes. So plagiarism means that you are presenting somebody else's work in such a way that it appears to be your own. So that could include taking material from a book or website and not indicating that you have taken it from this source, so not referencing it appropriately. To avoid being accused of plagiarism, you need to work to make sure that you know what the subject expects and keep strictly to the rules. So that also means to paraphrase the writing, the text that you read. So put ideas that you read somewhere into your own words. Or if you use somebody else's words verbatim, so if you use exactly the same words as somebody else has in a written source, then you need to include a direct quotation. So you need to put these words into quotation marks, and you also need to include a reference to the source. So include a reference to the journal article or book that you've taken these words from.
So then avoiding that, as Konstanze has been saying, good academic practice means that you are crediting those sources where the ideas are from. And so, of course, part of that is using credible sources. So occasionally we see people copy-pasting things off websites. That would come up as a problem and that would be referred to us. You must say where the information is from. This is so important because you're building on other people's ideas. Each of us, when we're writing, we're starting those thoughts from other people's theories or ideas and understandings. So we want to see how we can assess and give credit to your own thoughts. And so if you give someone else's idea, you need to credit it, and then we can see which bits you're adding on in terms of your understanding of the topic and what you're sort of experiencing and talking about there academically. This means that if you write about an idea, as we've already said, you need to provide an in-text reference within the same sentence, so that they're very close to it, to show where that information is from. And then, of course, at the very end in your reference list, put the full source for that, so we can then very clearly see where all of that information has come from.
So to paraphrase effectively, there's a few techniques to do this. So when you're reading something for an assignment and you will read several things, then it might be a good idea to try to understand the whole section first, and then move away from that text, move to your own document, and then try to summarize it in your own words. So definitely not copying something directly from another source, but trying to understand a good piece of text and then putting it into your own words is important. It's also a good idea to not paraphrase long sections, so not take a text and take a few paragraphs and just put these into your own words, but construct your arguments using different kinds of sources. So, and this is sometimes quite a challenge, but it's something to work on, to look at different sources and summarize those ideas. When you work with different texts, always make sure you write down what the source is. So where do you have your ideas from, so that you can then put in those in-text references and also the full reference in the reference list at the end. There's some tips here, a link to a good resource, and you can also find more information on your study skills Moodle.
So just for your information, the university has very carefully outlined the penalties which would apply if there is an offence of academic misconduct. So we've got them here, we won't go through them in depth, but you can look them up as well on the university website to find out more information about that. Okay, so a little bit on the Turnitin similarity report. So you will submit all your assignments via Turnitin. So this is a tool where you can upload your document. And it also gives you what is called a similarity report. And that is quite a useful tool that you can use to ensure you show good academic practice and to avoid academic misconduct. This Turnitin report will show you an overall percentage of similarity, and you can see that here where the arrow is. That is a first indication how much of your text matches other text. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether you've engaged in good academic practice or not. It's just a figure that shows you the overlap of between your assignment and other people's work. And the database goes through a range of sources, a lot of sources online, but it also compares your essay to other essays that have been submitted through the Turnitin system. So it shows you initially how much text of your text matches other text. You can then go look at the other text in more detail. So what are the other sources that are similar to your assignment? We go to the next slide. Then you can see that the Turnitin tool highlights the text, your text that is similar to other sources. In this example, the student's essay shows an overall similarity of 36%. So does the student need to worry? If we look at the examples here, we can see that the student has actually quoted the sources. It has put quotation marks and it has provided an in-text reference. So in the first example here, the student has quoted Connelly and Healy and provided a page number. So that means that it is good academic practice. It's not academic misconduct because the source has been acknowledged. What maybe needs to be pointed out is that your essay should not contain too many direct quotations. So if a good part of your essay, is made up from quotations, then you might think about doing more paraphrasing. So you might want to put other authors' words, text into your own words. So that is important to highlight here. But then if you weren't putting the direct quotes in, and if it was, if it wasn't referenced and this was highlighted, then, for example, the little number 10 here is showing us that this is, taken from a source. So if it wasn't correctly marked with quotations or with reference information, this would then indicate that the student hasn't provided their own words, but that is the words from elsewhere. And so this is then where we would investigate. So when you do submit your work, we'd encourage you to submit it early, at least the day before. Use the similarity rating that comes up, just like Konstanze said, to raise your awareness, to see, is it something, all of these highlighted sections, I always tell students, go and look at anything highlighted to see if you need to amend it. If you've accidentally missed off putting a reference, you can then add it and resubmit. If you need to put it into your own words, you can do that, resubmit. But ultimately, we want to see as little of this sort of highlighting as we can. So make sure that you use the similarity report to check your work and to amend it and resubmit it if that's needed. So a few take-home messages.
Yeah. So Make sure that you are familiar with the referencing conventions. So make sure you know how to quote and how to paraphrase correctly, and that perhaps takes a bit of practice, but it's important that you familiarize yourself with that early on in your course. You are expected to use different kinds of referencing conventions, so make sure you know which referencing conventions you are expected to use. As we just highlighted, do use the Turnitin report to check your written work, and do make sure you do this ahead of the submission deadline so that you can have the opportunity to work on those potentially, problematic sections and submit your assignment again before the deadline. Always, when you're in doubt, ask your tutor for support. There is a range of support available from the university. In addition to your personal tutor and all your other course tutors, there's support on the library website. There's also a very brilliant service available via the library, which are the academic skills mentors. So you can book an individual appointment with a skills mentor to work on your academic writing as well as other skills. So if you feel like you need some support in terms of referencing or using literature in your assignments, then they can provide good support and guidance. Finally, there's a study skills Moodle which has a wealth of resources available, so do make sure you check that one out.
Great, so hopefully that's been helpful. The main message is make sure that you're submitting your own work for your submissions, and if there's any queries or doubts at all, check the university's websites and policies to get any further information, and do get in touch with the tutor if there's anything.